You cut off my power in the middle of this storm. I, Evan Harper, shouted, my voice lost in the howling wind and torrential rain. I stood in the front yard of my house in Willow Creek, a suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina, barefoot on the cold, wet grass. A soaked blanket was wrapped around my shoulders, hanging like the cloak of a defeated warrior. I gripped a flashlight in my mouth, its faint flickering beam cutting through the thick curtain of rain, glinting off the white picket fences of the neighborhood. Dressed only in a t-shirt and shorts, I felt the rainwater seep through the fabric, chilling me to the bone. Thunder roared, as if the sky were laughing at my misery. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. Willow Creek is the kind of neighborhood where everything has to be perfect. Two-story brick houses line up neatly, lawns trimmed as if measured with a ruler, and no one dares plant a tree outside the Homeowners Association (HOA) approved list. I, 40 years old, have lived here for a few years, always trying to avoid arguments about fence paint colors or shrub heights. I don't care for meetings, but I'm not one to let anyone push me around either. In my garage I installed a state-of-the-art solar power system, thoroughly checked to meet regulations, just waiting for a big storm to prove its worth. The storm hit right after sunset, dark clouds swirling, thunder rumbling like a battlefield. Rain poured down like a waterfall, rattling windows and sweeping dry leaves across the street. The whole neighborhood hunkered down, doors locked tight, porch lights glowing, casting warm golden spots in the darkness. I sat in my living room, listening to the rain pound the roof, thinking I was prepared, until everything went black. Pop! The lights went out. The air conditioner stopped. The fridge, stocked with $600 worth of groceries from yesterday's supermarket run, fell eerily silent. The security system let out a weak beep before dying. The smart thermostat on the wall was now just a useless piece of plastic. Don't tell me the power's out now, I muttered, shaking my head in the dark. I rummaged through a drawer for a flashlight, guided by the dim glow of my phone. My hands trembled slightly from the cold as I flipped the light switch a few times, just to be sure. But nothing happened. No light, no sound, just the steady patter of rain and the roar of thunder outside. I threw on a raincoat and decided to check outside, even though I knew the rain was coming down in sheets. Stepping onto the porch, the wind slapped my face, rendering the raincoat nearly useless as water seeped through the collar. I swept the flashlight across the neighborhood, hoping to see all of Willow Creek plunged into darkness, a normal storm-related outage. But no, every other house was lit up like a Christmas tree. The Wilsons' house radiated warm yellow light through their curtains. The Jenkins inflatable flamingo still stood proudly in their yard, swaying under a waterproof spotlight. Sandra's air conditioner hummed steadily, and I caught the faint sound of a TV broadcasting baseball from afar. Only my house was swallowed in darkness, as if someone had deliberately cut my power. My wet hands made the phone screen slippery, but I managed to log into the BrightGrid Energy app, the company that supplies power to the area. The screen loaded slowly, then a glaring red alert popped up. Electrical service suspended due to HOA regulation violation. Contact HOA administrator. I blinked, reread it, unable to believe my eyes. The HOA, what right do they have to cut my power? I muttered, my voice a mix of disbelief and anger. I thought of Lydia Bennett, the HOA president, dubbed the Queen of Rules by the neighborhood for her love of issuing fines. I'd heard Clara talk about getting fined for a wrong-colored trash can, or Jenkins having to repaint his fence over a single scratch. But cutting power during a storm. I stood there in the pitch-black living room, rainwater dripping onto the floor. The storm still raged outside Willow Creek, thunder shaking the windows, as if mocking my predicament. The flashlight in my hand cast a weak circle of light, reflecting the anger rising inside me. The BrightGrid alert kept flashing in my mind, like a challenge I couldn't ignore. Lydia Bennett, I muttered, almost grinding my teeth. Who does she think she is to pull this? A sharp knock rang out from the front gate, cutting through my thoughts. I turned, the flashlight beam sweeping toward the door. The knock wasn't from the wind or a branch. It was too steady, too deliberate. I tightened my grip on the raincoat, still soaking wet, and stepped outside. Rain lashed my face, icy cold, but I didn't care. I waded through puddles to the iron gate in the front yard. Taped to it, in a waterproof plastic sleeve, was a bright orange notice, like a declaration of war. I tore it down, my hands shaking. Whether from cold or rage, I wasn't sure. Under the flashlight's beam the words stood out. HOA regulation violation, unauthorized generator use, code 8B7, immediate power disconnection required. At the bottom was Lydia Bennett's scrawled signature. I laughed, but it wasn't out of amusement. A dry, bitter laugh mixed with confusion and fury. Generator? I haven't even turned on my solar system, I muttered, shaking my head. The storm hadn't knocked out the neighborhood's grid, and my system was in standby mode, completely unrelated to any violation. She didn't cut the grid. She cut my house. I stuffed the notice into my coat pocket, my mind reeling. I recalled Lydia's past overreaches, fining Clara for a trash can's color, forcing Jenkins to repaint his fence over a scratch, threatening to cut Sandra's water for watering plants past curfew, but cutting power during a storm. This was a level of abuse even the Queen of Rules hadn't dared before. I looked at the neighborhood, the glowing lights from neighbors' houses mocking my darkness. I gripped the flashlight tighter, resolved not to let this slide. I slogged through puddles, rain soaking my hair, heading straight for Lydia's house. The familiar street was slick, but I didn't care. Lydia's house sat at the end of the block, a two-story glowing brightly, its porch light like a stage, highlighting my own home's darkness. Through the glass door, I saw Lydia standing there, wearing a cream silk robe, holding a steaming mug of cocoa, her triumphant smile like she'd just won a prize. "Rules are rules," she said, her voice sweet but cutting, sipping her cocoa while I stood drenched in the rain. I pounded on the glass door, rainwater streaming down my face. "Lydia," I yelled, my breath fogging in the cold air. "You cut my power." Lydia didn't flinch, eyeing me like a stray rat. She slowly opened the door, staying behind the dry threshold. "No, the HOA did that," she corrected, her tone smug. "Your solar system was flagged as non-compliant. Grid-tied systems can't activate automatically without HOA review. That's the rule." I clenched my jaw. "My system isn't even on," I snapped. "And even if it was, you have no right to cut my power." Lydia smiled, as if she'd heard the best joke ever. "Maybe we don't, but we did," she said, shrugging like it was no big deal. "Want your power back? File a compliance review, pay the fine, and wait for board approval. You know the process." Then she took a sip of cocoa, the warm glow from her living room behind her, radiant and inviting, like a performance I couldn't resist. Staring at the light from Lydia's house, I felt a bitter sting in my chest. It was like a reminder of my situation, a memory of injustice I couldn't let go. Something inside me flared. Not anger, not despair, but a cold, calculating clarity. I turned away mid-sentence, stepping off her porch into the rain, saying nothing more. Let her think she'd won. Let her savor this moment. I didn't go to bed, nor did I sit complaining in the cold darkness of my powerless house. The storm still roared outside Willow Creek, rain hammering the windows like it wanted to break everything. But my mind was now sharp as a blade. The confrontation with Lydia on her porch, with her smug smile and steaming cocoa, burned in my memory. "Maybe we don't have the right, but we did." Her words echoed, a challenge I couldn't ignore. I peeled the wet blanket off my shoulders, hung it on a rack in the corner of the living room, and walked straight to a hidden door in the hallway, where it would all begin. The door led to a secret room no one in Willow Creek knew about, not even the nosiest neighbors. I placed my finger on the biometric lock. A soft click sounded and the door opened. Inside was my private control room, a small but cutting-edge space with large screens mounted on the walls and a console glowing faintly under blue light. I powered up the system, a gentle hum starting, as if the room were coming alive. The main screen lit up, displaying a real-time map of Willow Creek's power grid, each house a dot of light, except mine, dark as a black hole. I sat in the chair, the screen's glow reflecting off my rain-streaked face. I whispered, almost to myself, "You think I'm just some ordinary neighbor, don't you, Lydia?" A slight smirk crossed my lips, not joyful but the kind of smile you get when you've found your trump card. I typed a few commands, and the screen switched to the system logs of Bright Grid Energy, the company I run, supplying power to 50 neighborhoods, including this self-important one. No one here knows I'm the CEO. I prefer it that way, living quietly, dodging the curious stares at HOA meetings. But tonight, that secret would be my weapon. I checked the logs, my fingers flying over the keyboard. The data unfolded like a tale of guilt. Lydia had used an outdated admin code, a relic from 3 company mergers ago, to order my power cut. She'd done it through a rookie employee, a guy too green to verify the command. "Amateur," I muttered, shaking my head. I could restore my power right now, a few clicks away. But no, I didn't want a quick fix. I wanted Lydia to pay, not just for me, but for the whole neighborhood that had endured her abuses too long. I recalled the times Lydia had tormented residents, Clara fined for a trash can's color, Jenkins forced to repaint his fence over a tiny scratch, Sandra threatened with a water shutoff for watering past hours. Each story was a hammer blow to Lydia's arrogance, building a fortress around her. And I decided not just to watch, but to tear it down. I opened the analytics software, starting to trace every move Lydia had made in the power grid. If she dared mess with my system, it surely wasn't her first time. She's gone too far, I told myself, eyes glued to the screen, where numbers and charts began revealing a story Lydia never wanted exposed. After a while, I paused, looking at the grid map again, seeing Lydia's house still blazing in the night. The sense of injustice surged again, a reminder of what I'd just endured. I realized I couldn't act alone. I needed allies. I grabbed my phone and called Ethan Walsh, my cousin, who works at the county's utility management department. Ethan, I said when he picked up, my voice calm but firm. I need your help with something. There's a rat in my grid, and I want to trap it. I didn't mention Lydia, but Ethan surely knew who I meant. I could easily flip my power back on with a few clicks in the secret control room, but that wasn't the goal. Despite the storm still raging, rain pounding the windows like it wanted to shatter them, I didn't care. The blue glow from the screens lit my face, highlighting a sharp, determined gaze. The standoff with Lydia, her smug smile and that line, "Maybe we don't have the right, but we did," still echoed in my head. I didn't just want my power back. I wanted to topple the queen of rules and prove she couldn't keep manipulating everything. I typed quickly, numbers and charts flashing across the main bright grid energy screen. If she dared mess with my grid, I muttered, it's definitely not her first time. I opened the data analytics software, tracing every action tied to the admin account. Lydia used to cut my power. A secondary screen lit up, showing the neighborhood's power usage logs. I frowned, my fingers pausing as I spotted an odd pattern. Lydia's house, the HOA clubhouse, and another address, her cousin Jason's place, all showed strange consumption spikes, as if someone was hiding something. I dug deeper, pulling records from 3 months back. The HOA clubhouse, where Lydia held her high-handed meetings, was using non-compliant equipment, high-capacity air conditioners, outdoor floodlights, even a pool heater no one knew about. Not approved, I whispered, jotting it down. I moved to Jason's house, finding illegal underground cables feeding a basement full of Bitcoin mining rigs, guzzling power like a beast. Nice one, Lydia, I said sarcastically, shaking my head. But the biggest find was Lydia's meter. It barely moved, despite her house glowing every night, fish tank pumps humming, and automated sprinklers running non-stop. Meter bypass, I said, voice icy. She's stealing power from the whole neighborhood. Each discovery was a bullet, and I was loading the clip. I saved everything. Usage logs, security footage from grid nodes, and internal emails between Lydia and a former BrightGrid tech who quit right after setting up her outdated admin code. I remembered residents complaining about high bills, Clara saying she paid an extra $200 a month, Jenkins grumbling about his fish pond pump costs. Now I knew why. Lydia was shifting her stolen power costs to the neighborhood. She's not just abusing power, I thought. She's a thief. I stood, stretching, hearing my joints pop. The room was chilly without electricity, but I didn't feel it. My anger kept me warm. I needed a bigger plan, and I needed help. I grabbed my phone, texting Tom Carver, a retired lawyer down the street, known for his biting humor and sharp memory for HOA laws. Tom, meet me at the corner coffee shop tomorrow. I texted, bring your legal brain. There's a big fish to catch. I smiled, picturing Tom's face when he heard the story. Before leaving the control center, I double-checked all the data. In the records of HOA meetings chaired by Lydia, every line read like an indictment of her authoritarian rule. Fining Clara for a trash can's color, making Jenkins repaint his fence over a minor chip, threatening Sandra's water for late watering. Each decision was pushed through with Lydia's polite smile and unyielding stare. She thinks she's untouchable, I muttered, saving the files to a compact USB, then activating new security sensors I'd installed on the grid. I knew Lydia wouldn't sit still when cornered. I left the room, the dark hallway lit only by faint indicator lights, my heart pounding with the thrill of a hunter tracking final clues. Lydia had held power too long, blinding the neighborhood with seemingly harmless but calculated rules. But now, I had not just the truth but the tools to expose it. Enjoy your throne while it lasts, Lydia, I thought, closing the control room door behind me. Your time's running out. Collecting evidence was just the start. The data I'd gathered from faulty equipment to illegal connections and meter tampering now sat safely on a USB, ready to be brought to light. But information alone wasn't enough. I needed an airtight strategy, a move with no gaps. Outside, Willow Creek's sky had calmed, rain now just tapping lightly on the roof, but in the control room, the air was thick with the weight of a crucial showdown. The blue glow from the system reflected on my face, casting a calm but resolute smile. Lydia's power game was about to end, and this time the whole neighborhood would watch. I didn't work alone. The next morning I met Tom Carver at the corner coffee shop, a cozy spot smelling of waffles and soft jazz. Tom, a retired lawyer with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, was known in Willow Creek for his sarcastic wit and razor-sharp recall of HOA bylaws. "What's the big fish you're after?" Tom asked, sipping black coffee, his eyes twinkling like he already had a hunch. I slid the USB across the table, voice low but firm. "Lydia Bennett. She cut my power during the storm, and that's just the tip of the iceberg." I laid it all out. The orange violation notice, the outdated admin code, the clubhouse equipment, Jason's cables, and Lydia's bypassed meter. Tom listened, nodding occasionally, then burst out laughing when I mentioned Lydia sipping cocoa while I stood soaked in the rain. "She's a walking drama," Tom said, shaking his head. "But you've got the evidence, and I've got the way to make it a bombshell at the HOA meeting in 3 days." We got to work right there in the shop. Tom flipped through old HOA meeting minutes, pointing out Lydia's oversteps, fining Clara for trash cans, forcing Jenkins to repaint, threatening Sandra for watering. "She runs this place like a queen," Tom said, voice dripping with irony. "But queens fall when their thrones wobble." I nodded, opening my laptop, showing bright grid data, anomalous power usage charts, grid node camera footage, Lydia's emails with the ex-tech. Tom jotted notes fast, sketching out how to present it so residents couldn't ignore it. Each piece of evidence a hammer blow to Lydia's empire. I didn't just rely on Tom. Back in the control room, I set up a surveillance drone outside the HOA hall where the meeting would happen. The small device, with high-def cameras and motion sensors, would catch every move Lydia made, in case she tried anything. "She won't see it coming," I muttered, checking the drone's signal on the screen. I also upgraded the grid's intrusion sensors, ensuring no one, not even Lydia, could tamper without triggering an alert. Every step was a chess move, and I was playing to win. Meanwhile, Lydia wasn't idle. I got an email from her, sent to the whole neighborhood, accusing my solar system of endangering the grid. Classic Lydia, I scoffed, reading it on my phone. Some neighbors whispered. Sandra texted asking if it was true. Jenkins grumbled in the group chat. I didn't reply. I knew the truth would speak for itself, and the meeting would be the perfect stage. To steel myself for the final fight, I visited the Wilsons' house. 2 people who'd suffered under Lydia's petty rules. Mrs. Wilson, her silver hair neatly pinned, poured tea and recounted how Lydia threatened to sue them over roses slightly off the fence line. "She made us feel like criminals," she said, eyes distant. I squeezed her frail hand, promising things would get better. That promise wasn't just for them, but for all of Willow Creek suffering in silence. The night before the big day, I triple-checked everything in the basement control room. Documents, footage, emails, meeting minutes, all neatly organized, waiting for their moment. I texted Tom one line. "All set. Tomorrow we flip the board." He replied instantly. "Ready like a soldier. Sleep. You'll need a clear head." I powered down the screens, leaving the room in total silence. But my mind was clearer than ever. 3 days later, the community center was packed. Regular HOA meetings usually dwelt on trivialities like fence paint or tree heights. But this one felt like a trial. I didn't go. Instead, I watched it all from the control room, eyes locked on the screen, where the drone streamed live footage from the hall. The glow from the monitors lit my face, a faint smile forming as I saw everything unfold as planned. It was all in place. The evidence, the strategy, and the final blow for Lydia. Sipping cold coffee, I whispered to myself, time to drop the curtain, Lydia. The hall was decorated as usual, a long wooden table up front, rows of plastic chairs, a whiteboard scrawled with Willow Creek HOA. But the mood was different. Residents murmured, some glancing at Lydia, who stood at the head, wearing a pastel dress and pearl necklace, her fake smile bright as a spotlight. She started sweetly, "Thank you all for coming. We have important issues to discuss, like neighborhood grid safety." A few nodded, but Clara, in the front row, crossed her arms, eyes narrowed with suspicion. Lydia held up a stack of papers. "As I mentioned in my email," she said, voice high-pitched, "a resident's solar system is endangering the grid. To protect the community, we had to act, by cutting their power." She paused, as if expecting applause, but there was only whispering. Jenkins, in his old baseball cap, muttered about what right they had to cut power. Lydia ignored him, pushing a new proposal. I want the HOA to have authority to control power in emergencies. Who's in favor? That was the cue. Tom Carver, seated in the middle, raised his hand, his wire-rimmed glasses glinting under the lights. Hold on, Lydia, Tom said, voice calm but cutting. Before we vote, I have some questions. Lydia frowned, her smile stiffening, but she nodded. Tom stood, holding a thick file, and began. You talk about grid safety, but did you know the HOA clubhouse uses non-compliant equipment, air conditioners, floodlights, a pool heater, none approved by BrightGrid? The room went silent. Lydia opened her mouth, but Tom wasn't done. He held up a color-printed chart. Here's the power usage data. The clubhouse consumes double a normal house, but its bill is zero. Odd, right? A few residents murmured, Clara nodding vigorously. Lydia jumped in. That's a technical error. I'll look into it. But Tom brushed her off. Then there's your cousin Jason's house. Illegal cables to the basement, running Bitcoin miners. Did you know, Lydia? The murmurs turned to uproar. Jenkins shouted, Bitcoin. I'm paying for her to mine crypto. Lydia flushed, stammering, I don't. That's a rumor. But Tom delivered the final blow, projecting security footage onto the whiteboard, showing a former BrightGrid tech installing a meter bypass at Lydia's house. And this, Tom said, staring her down, is your meter, Lydia. It doesn't move, yet your house lights up like a stadium every night. The hall erupted in chaos. Residents shouted questions, glaring at Lydia. She stepped back, clutching the table, her face twisted in shock. This is slander, she screamed, but no one listened. Tom stepped forward, his voice rising over the noise. One more thing. The person Lydia had disconnected? Evan Harper, CEO of BrightGrid, the company powering this entire neighborhood. Silence gripped the room. Then it exploded again. Clara jumped up, eyes blazing. I move to vote Lydia out right now. In the control room, I watched it all through the drone's feed, a smirk creeping across my lips as Lydia froze amid the storm of criticism. Hands shot up, the vote nearly unanimous. Thunderous applause broke out as the result was announced. Lydia stood stunned, her face red with anger and humiliation. She muttered something, then abruptly turned and stormed out, leaving behind a wave of cheers. On the screen, Tom faced the camera, quietly flashing a thumbs up. I took a sip of cold coffee, nodding slightly. Nice work, Tom. But Lydia wasn't one to accept defeat easily. Though ousted amid jeers, I knew she was plotting something else. Sitting in the dim glow of the control room monitors, I didn't see the grid map anymore, just her furious face as she left the hall. I set my coffee aside, eyes sharpening. She'll be back, I told myself, but next time, I'll be waiting. A few days later, a BrightGrid invoice hit the HOA office, an $18,000 bill that stunned the neighborhood. It detailed everything: non-compliant clubhouse equipment, Jason's illegal cables, and Lydia's bypassed meter. As BrightGrid CEO, I ordered an audit of Willow Creek's grid right after Lydia's fall. The results were as expected. Every violation pointed to her. I sent the invoice via email, with a short note: pay on time to avoid service disruption. In the control room, I chuckled, picturing Lydia opening that email. She reacted as I predicted. A flurry of angry emails flooded BrightGrid, demanding to speak to the person in charge, and calling the bill a scam. I read them on my laptop, sipping fresh coffee, laughing. The person in charge, I muttered. Good luck, Lydia. BrightGrid responded with an auto reply, polite but cold, directing her to the HOA office. Willow Creek residents exploded. The group chat overflowed with outrage. Clara called Lydia a power thief. Jenkins demanded an emergency meeting. I scrolled through the messages, feeling justice spread, but I didn't stop at the invoice. I ordered a full grid inspection, zeroing in on the HOA clubhouse, Jason's house, and Lydia's garage. BrightGrid technicians, joined by Raleigh inspectors, showed up with meters and notepads. At the clubhouse, they found air conditioners wired wrong, frayed cables ripe for a fire. Jason's place revealed shoddy underground lines feeding a basement buzzing with Bitcoin rigs. But the real prize was Lydia's garage, a non-compliant water heater, wires tangled like a spider web. The inspector shook his head, scribbling, major violations. Lydia tried to explain when the team knocked. Rats, she yelled, pointing at the wires. They chewed everything. No one bought it. A young BrightGrid tech, grinning patiently, pointed at the bypassed meter. Rats did this too. Onlookers laughed, phones recording. The video spread through the group chat, captioned, Lydia's rats must have engineering degrees. I watched it on my laptop, laughing so hard it hurt. She's digging her own grave, I thought. The emergency meeting had no Lydia, but her name dominated. Henry, a former judge, stood to propose banning her permanently from HOA roles. "We can't let someone who abused power run this place," he said firmly. The vote was swift, unanimous. In the group chat, residents shared memes. Lydia in a crown of broken wires, or a meter labeled, "Lord Rat's Night Shift." I laughed scrolling through, feeling lighter. I still hadn't turned my power back on. Not out of forgetfulness or a glitch, but because I wanted the dark house as a reminder that the fight wasn't over. In the control room's quiet, I reviewed reports, cross-checking every detail, leaving no loose ends. Lydia was out of power, but I knew she hadn't surrendered. I zoomed in on the grid map, eyes tracing the power lines. "Go ahead and try," I whispered, calm as a still night. A new alert pinged on the screen, and I leaned forward, ready. No title, no reputation, not even respect, just a punchline online. Yet Lydia still didn't vanish. Though dubbed the power-off queen by the neighborhood, I knew she was quietly plotting something. On the screen, the grid map held steady, but I flicked to new posts. GIFs of Lydia, yelling slander, and a mock video of her yanking wires like an action star. I sipped cold coffee, lips curling slightly. "Not done yet, are you, Lydia?" I thought, fingers poised over the keyboard. The answer came fast. Lydia, ego bigger than the storm, hired Dylan Reed, a 25-year-old hacker calling himself a grid genius. Dylan, with messy hair and a sticker-covered laptop, rolled into Willow Creek cocky, like a few keystrokes would flip the game. Lydia met him in her garage, wires still a mess from the bright grid check. "I want this neighborhood's grid in chaos," Lydia said, voice sharp, clutching a wine glass instead of cocoa. "Make Evan Harper pay." Dylan picked his target, the power box behind Lydia's house, a minor grid node. That night, under a starry sky, he snuck to the backyard, carrying a tool bag and laptop. Dim streetlights cast his shadow as he pried open the box, muttering, "Easy as pie." But I was ready. The intrusion sensors I'd set up after the HOA meeting caught movement instantly. In the control room, a red alert flashed. I sat up, fingers dancing over keys, activating the surveillance drone. In seconds, the drone zipped over an oak tree, hovering above Dylan. Its speaker blared an electronic voice into the night. "Unauthorized access detected. Leave the area immediately." Dylan jumped, dropping his screwdriver, tumbling into the mud. "What the hell is this?" he yelled, staring at the drone's blinking red lights like demon eyes. His laptop slipped, glowing uselessly on the ground. From the porch, Lydia, wine in hand, heard the speaker and ran out, seeing Dylan scrambling. "You didn't tell me about drones," Dylan hissed, panicked. Lydia froze, wine spilling, her face pale under the streetlight. "Who did this?" she screamed, glaring at the drone like it would answer. The drone quietly recorded, streaming to my control room. I watched, laughing so hard my chair shook. "Welcome to my grid, Dylan," I muttered, saving the video. I edited it quick, adding text, "Willow Creek's safer than you think," and sent it anonymously to the group chat. The video spread like wildfire. By morning, all of Willow Creek had seen Lydia's panic and Dylan's fall. Clara texted the group. She hired a hacker for real. Sounds like a comedy. Jenkins spiced it up with a drone meme captioned, "Evan 1 Lydia 0. Lydia tried to save face, posting a long rant calling it a community safety check. No one bought it. Sandra commented bluntly, "Hacker for security. Nice try." Local news picked up the clip, dubbing it a grid revolution, making Lydia a laughingstock. In my familiar room, I leaned back scrolling through residents' messages. The backlash against Lydia meant I didn't need to step in. The neighbors spoke for me. On the screen the grid stayed steady, the drone circling calmly. I knew Lydia was out of real moves. Every step now just sank her deeper into the mess she'd made. I didn't need to strike back anymore. Lydia's every effort was like stepping on her own stains. From the Dylan clash to the drone's final blow, her reputation was dust. Each time she spoke, she got laughed at harder. The group chat overflowed with memes. Lydia's shocked face in sci-fi scenes, or the drone with a sign, "Welcome to the future." Back in the control room, I sipped cold coffee, muttering, "Still not backing off, huh, Lydia?" But I knew, before retreating, she'd try one last play. And I was ready. I went on the Rayleigh Voices podcast, hoping to salvage my reputation. Under the studio lights, I wore a pastel dress, pearls, forcing a smile like my HOA president days. I just wanted to protect Willow Creek. I said sweetly, "The power cut was for safety." The host cut in, You mean cutting off the power company's CEO? The studio went quiet, then the crew laughed. I flushed, stammering. That was a misunderstanding. The podcast spread faster than the drone video, with residents commenting, misunderstanding. She stole power for a year. I tried another angle, sending a 3-page complaint to Wake County's utility office, accusing BrightGrid of abusing authority, and demanding an investigation into me. But I didn't know the recipient was Ethan Walsh, my cousin, head of utility management. Ethan called, laughing. She called you a grid manipulator. Want to respond? I grinned. One line. Ethan, tampering with the grid is a felony. That'll shut her up. Ethan did it. The short, cold reply reached Lydia the next morning. She read it on her porch, face paling, crumpling the paper and tossing it into the yard. The residents ran out of patience. They held an emergency meeting in the park, barring me. Henry declared, "We need new rules. No one like Lydia can hold an HOA role." The proposal passed amid cheers. No votes against. The group chat exploded with memes. Clara posted my picture with "Goodbye Queen." Jenkins added a meter. Rats retired. Even Sandra, my old friend, turned away, texting privately. She had it coming. I flipped my power back on Friday night, right as Lydia was live streaming, painting herself as a victim. As my house lit up, BrightGrid cut power to Lydia's, Jason's and the HOA clubhouse, just for a few minutes, but enough for her to scream midstream. Not again. Residents roared with laughter, comments flooding, Evans saying hi. In the control room, I watched the clip laughing till it hurt, saving it to my collection. Call it a goodbye gift, I whispered. Lydia gave up, putting her house up for sale, but no one bit. Her notoriety clung to every brick. Neighbors whispered, who'd move into the power-off Queen's den? One quiet night, I stood on my porch, watching the streetlights glow like a living pulse restored. I didn't end the game with vengeance, but with truth exposed. Still, I kept the grid sensors active, just in case the loser circled back. The group chat had a new meme, Lydia with text, low battery, power obsolete. I smiled, turned off my phone, leaving the night behind. After the chaos, power cuts, investigations, surveillance drones and power-off Queen memes, the residents threw Powerfest at the Central Park, a declaration that no one could dim the community's spirit. In my control room corner, I scrolled through the group invite, lips curving. They know how to celebrate a win. I wouldn't take the stage, but I'd be there in the quietest way. As always. Willow Creek's park, usually just kids' play space and Jenkins' dog-walking spot, became a dazzling stage. LED lights hung from oaks, twinkling on BrightGrid solar batteries. No one knew I'd funded them. Long tables held cookies, lemonade, grilled hot dogs, their aroma wafting through. A small stage sat mid-park, a local country band rocking lively tunes, kids dancing, adults clapping. Clara, silver hair neatly pinned, beamed at the face-painting booth, drawing lightning bolts on a kid's cheek. Jenkins, cap tilted, retold the drone-chasing Dylan tale with extra flair, making the crowd howl. Maggie Sullivan, the new HOA president, took the stage, holding the mic with easy confidence, worlds apart from Lydia. Willow Creek, she called. We've been through a long ride, but today's about the future. Residents cheered, some whistling. Maggie announced reforms, scrapping petty fines, launching an online portal to track HOA spending, starting a fund to help with power bills. No one loses electricity over dumb rules again, she said, the park erupting in roars. A new energy display board was unveiled near the stage, engraved, "Don't let someone clueless hold the switch." Henry muttered to Sandra, "This is the HOA we needed." I didn't go to Powerfest. I preferred staying out of the spotlight, watching via the drone screen, now filming the fest instead of chasing hackers. But I felt the joy, music, laughter, the unity Lydia tried to break. BrightGrid, under my anonymous direction, donated more solar batteries for the park, ensuring Powerfest stayed lit. A box of cookies arrived at my door, with a handwritten note from Maggie, "Thanks for helping us take back the light." I smiled, setting the box on the table, thinking I might try one. Lydia made a brief appearance at Powerfest, wide hat and sunglasses, like she could blend in. Kids spotted her, teasing, "Need to charge your phone? Park's got free solar." Lydia flushed, hurrying off. Days later, her for sale sign vanished, house sold, and Lydia left Raleigh, no trace. The group chat shared one last meme, her sign with "Power Off Queen relocates." Clara commented, "Hope she finds a place with no HOA." I stood on my porch, watching the neighborhood lights shine, free from manipulation. I thought back on the journey, the blackout night, the orange ticket, the drone, Powerfest. Power, I realized, wasn't in switches or rules, but in community trust. Willow Creek was now a model, the power-off queen story, a funny legend, retold when someone griped about bills. I stepped inside, leaving the night behind, feeling I belonged here. My house was lit, not just with electricity, but with a reminder of real power, justice, unity, and a touch of creativity from my grid. The story of Evan Harper and Lydia Bennett in Willow Creek reflects many facets of life in America today, particularly the tension between personal power, community rules, and social justice in suburban neighborhoods. Lydia's abuse of her HOA president role to cut Evan's power during a storm, based on a false unauthorized generator claim, highlights a common U.S. issue. HOAs sometimes overstep, imposing rigid rules without transparency. Lydia's actions, bypassing her meter, enabling cousin Jason's illegal Bitcoin mining, and passing costs to residents, echo real-world petty corruption in local groups, where personal gain trumps public good. In contrast, Evan's response, from using technology, drones, sensors, to teaming with Tom Carver and residents like Clara, to expose the truth at the HOA meeting, embodies the American spirit of fighting for justice, through truth and community solidarity. Powerfest, with its LED lights, Maggie Sullivan's reforms, and the sign, "Don't let someone clueless hold the switch," symbolizes the drive to rebuild trust and transparency post-conflict. The lesson is that in real U.S. life, facing injustice from groups like HOAs takes patience, proof, and community ties. Don't rush to retaliate like Lydia with hacker Dylan. Do it like Evan. Gather data, meeting minutes, bills, find trustworthy allies, Tom, Ethan, and present the truth at public forums, neighborhood meetings. Life in America rewards those who work the system right, like Evan with BrightGrid, and unite like Willow Creek residents to drive change. From ousting Lydia to throwing Powerfest. Learn from Lydia, opaque power crumbles, while truth, like Evan's restored lights, always finds a way to shine. Subscribe to stay tuned for more stories, as wild as Willow Creek's takedown of the power-off queen. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video, with more shocks from the grid.